Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Laconia Conservation Commission for June 20th, 2018. It is 6:09. I'm Dean Anson.
Lisa Moran.
Michael Foot.
Dick Christopher.
Evan Arthur and staff recording technician.
Okay, so we first we'll do a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Might want to move your mic.
Okay, so we'll change the agenda a little bit. We have a quorum, and we're going to start with item number PL 2018-0071 SP, comma, 0074 CUP, a wetland buffer for 174 Province Street, MLB 463-188-1, Grace Presbyterian Church. And the applicant wants to construct 3,028 square feet of additional building, and they want to build 32 additional parking places. Mike Bemis is here from Steve Smith Associates.
Yes, good evening. My name is Michael Bemis from Stephen Smith and Associates, but I'm also a member of this particular church, so I'm familiar with aspects of the church as well. And we've been working on site plan and have submitted that to the planning board, hoping to get approval later on this summer. And one of the things in the process that we found we get into the engineering design was that we wouldn't be able to avoid affecting or penetrating the 50-foot wetlands buffer. The proposed design will not directly impact the wetlands, but we couldn't come up with a design that would keep us entirely out of the buffer. As far as the plan goes, this is the driveway that comes in off Province Street between two residences. Driveway comes into the property. The overall property is about 3.8 acres. And the building, church building as it exists today, is this rectangle right here. Planning to add on to the back of it 26 feet. And then there's a 17-foot addition on the side that will be a new entrance. And the existing driveway and parking is right here. And then the proposed would be to add some to the back of the property and onto the side. So our neighbors, we have two residential neighbors here, one over here, and one person owns two properties over here. The city owns the land on the north, which is where the same property the dog park is going on to. And then to the east is St. Lambert's Cemetery. So I've met with all the neighbors and explained to them what we're doing, and so far support from them. The property is pretty well screened. You can see the tree line goes all the way around the property, and a section here between these two abutters here. And so from the road, unless you know where the driveway is and look straight up the driveway, most people don't even know we're there because we have a little tiny sign because of the zone and all that. But what our hope is to get site plan approval and then add on to the building and the parking lot. And we have submitted plans to the planning board, and we met with the zoning board last night because there was one of the regulations in the parking design we asked for variance on. And from when you go from south to north dimension, the regulations require that if you have an expanse of more than 150 feet of pavement, then you need to put a 10-foot landscape buffer in it. And we asked for a waiver from that because what we have is a little wetlands right here and then another wetlands right over here. And the buffer comes out into the parking lot here, and the 50-foot buffer comes in this area from this wetlands. And by asking for, and we received, granted the waiver, the 10-foot strip allows us to narrow that overall length by 10 feet, having less of an impact on the buffers. So that was our goal, and the zoning board granted that waiver. The church was approved and built in 1987, and when that was the case, when the property was vacant, we bought it, got our approvals, there wasn't any wetlands back here. This is an outlet ditch, and kind of serves like the proposed spreaders that we've got here, ditches. And this, over the time, since '87, this wetlands has developed in that outlet ditch. So that's something that now that we're having to deal with. We have met with Public Works in dealing with the drainage. The way the design works is that we have catch basins up here and one in the middle of the parking lot. And all of the surface drainage on the south end of the parking lot goes into this catch basin, which then gets piped out to this outlet ditch. And then the rest of the parking lot to the north just sheet drains towards that wetlands to the north. Now, with the design that we're proposing now, pretty much the same thing will happen is this area of the parking lot will drain into that catch basin and go where it has been all along. The north end of the existing parking lot and the proposed addition now are graded so that neither one of them will go towards this wetlands, but will be picked up in these treatment swales. One of them heading off this way, one of them heading off that way. So in effect, we're lessening the amount of surface drainage that will go into that wetlands. So that was, and feedback we got from our initial TRC meeting with the department's heads was that they were happy with that design. So overall, I guess what our approach to it has been is that we haven't been able to come up with a design where we can stay completely out of the 50-foot wetland buffer, but we have come up with a design where we won't be directly impacting the wetlands and will be lessening the amount of surface runoff that will go to them. And right now, we don't have any treatment other than this little wetlands here, and when this is done, we will have 2 treatment swales. So that's pretty much what we're planning to do and hoping to get your recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Can you speak a bit to the term sheet flow? And maybe I don't know stuff.
Right.
And I'm wondering how it comes off the edge of this pavement, how it's directed. Is there a little berm? I don't know, you know. I'm just asking what happens right here.
Yes, these lines right here are finished grade contours, and this area up here is all pitched to drain into this catch basin. From here on, it's funneling to here, and then the grading with these elevations will bring it over to this point and over to this point, and then enter the 2 ditches here. So right now, the existing parking lot, just when we say sheet flow, we mean just over the ground, into the grass, and then dissipates. And if we have heavy rain or snow belt or whatever, it may get over to the wetlands. But with the grading of the pavement, which is easier to do with pavement than it is earth, we can make sure that all this surface off the driveway parking comes into either this swale or to this swale, and nothing from that catch basin on will be emptying into this. It's all-
So you're going to eliminate the sheet flow?
That's right.
Okay. And you're gonna expand the parking to match up with the requirement for the additional 3,000 plus square feet of building, plus to address the additional need that you currently have without that addition?
That's right. We have about 100 seats right now in the existing building, and the number of spaces we have is not quite enough. When everybody's there, we're parking in the travel lanes and along the driveway and all that, and we want to avoid that, especially where we have a narrow. Two cars can pass here, but if you're parking there, then
Right.
it makes a real problem. So we figured out how many extra we need for the space we've got, came up with a factor, and then applied that to the additional 50 seats in the congregation that, of course, we won't attain that right off, but eventually hope to grow to that size.
Too bad
And
you
this parking lot we're proposed will accommodate that.
Too bad you don't buy St. Joseph's Church on Church Street. There's a lot of land there for parking.
Yep.
That's for sale.
So's the hospital.
What?
Lisa, you have any questions? Anybody else have any other questions?
Dean, I visited the site
Okay.
out there. What Mike has said, both sides, starting with the wetland closest to Province Street, it slopes down towards that, which is good that they're not gonna be really impacting anything there. The other side does have, first glance, it looks like it's flat, I'll just go, but it has I noticed it does have a slight funnel to the wetlands. And then once you get to the edge of the woods where it intersects with their lawn, it then drops down to the wetlands. So funneling away from that was something that I was very agreeable with.
Okay, good, good. Thank you for going there. So does anybody want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to, let me get my stuff together so I can do this correctly. And so we agree that everything here looks reasonable, it's well planned?
Right.
Okay. So I make a motion that, this is more than accepting,
Support.
that we support the, application of PL 2018-0071 SP, and as they're headed for, a conditional use permit in the wetlands buffer, we as the Conservation Commission find that this to be an acceptable, plan as presented,
With no comments.
with no comments.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any additional comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Good, thank you.
Do you need these drawings back?
No.
Okay,
No, that's my field.
Oh,
copy.
sorry.
Downstairs. Yep.
yep. You can't have them.
I know where I can get some more.
Big machine that prints them.
Okay, so let's go back to the original agenda and review the previous meeting's minutes.
Since we did not do that at the last meeting because we went straight to milfoil,
Right,
you have two sets of meetings
Right.
that I have included in your packet.
right, so let's do them, we'll do the June 6th, 2018 minutes first. Anybody have any comments?
Just who is P. Taylor?
Patty Taylor. She lives over on Pickerel Cove.
So,
There's a small homeowners group there, and she's associated with them.
so you need to decide whether I was absent or there.
Well, we're being a little flexible tonight, so you make the call. You were not there, I don't think. were you?
I showed up for about 5 minutes and then I left,
Okay,
so.
okay.
But I need to be, if you're recording absent members, then I should be there, if that's where you want to put me.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
No.
Somebody want to make a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes of June 6, 2018 minutes as presented, or once, as amended by the addition of Lisa being here in actuality.
Okay.
I wasn't here.
So,
So,
Can I second?
Mhm.
I'll second it.
okay. Any additional comments? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
aye?
Opposed? Okay, good. Okay, so now we have the meeting for May 16th, 2018. Okay. Anybody have any comments?
I'm trying to, under other business, for some reason this isn't making sense. The property, it's like the third sentence in, the property will need a wetland CPU for a shed to be installed on the property wand. There will be a gravel path running,
I think it's supposed to be
and there will be,
property and,
okay, so
Yeah.
there's a W there, okay. I'm just trying to make sense of a
Good.
property wand. I'm like, wait a minute.
What is that? Can I have one? Does it help?
wand one, two?
Want one?
Okay, anybody else have any additional comments? Anybody wanna make a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes from
May.
May 16th, 2018, with a correction of the W.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so now we go to, the 30-foot, on the 5th of June, the planning board had a meeting, and they looked at our recommendation for changing the ordinance and including the 30-foot buffer for intermittent and, this should say intermittent and permanent streams. Right?
I thought it was just for intermittent.
It's for,
If it's for permanent, then
it's for permanent and intermittent.
Does this mean they have to go back and do some work?
No, I don't think so.
How did they,
Well, could you check and see what they,
double check that they're correct.
okay. And the planning board approved that. Approved the change, and now it goes to the city council, and I don't know if it went to them yet,
It has not, from what I've seen, because their last meeting that they had was a specifically budget meeting, so it was not on the agenda from when I looked.
So it's good to check your wording on that, cause that's how that slipped the cog last time
Right.
around. 'Cause,
Exactly.
I mean, if it's a magic trick, I've seen it before, I'm not impressed.
30-foot from, 30-foot overall, 30-foot from the center on either
No,
side?
no, it's 30 foot from the center to the top of bank, on either, on both sides,
So it's like 60 feet.
yes.
Has that been made clear?
It says it's 30 feet from center of stream to top of bank. That's what it states.
So it's the top of bank. Was the top of the bank the limiting factor in any way, or is 30 feet the controlling factor?
If I have an intermittent stream that's less than 6 inches deep, and so it comes and goes. And it goes through a relatively flat area, what's top of bank? Top of that 6 inches.
It would be, then it would be from the center of the stream out, 30 feet.
Even over the top of the bank? There's your stream, there's your bank. It's a, say the stream's 10 feet wide.
Evan, how difficult would it be to get exactly what they approved right now? Get that wording, how difficult would it be?
Forward my phone.
I've been questioning this quite often, what the wording would be, and what, 30 feet from what, first off? And could it mean 30 feet? Could it mean 60 feet? And if you got a 10-foot stream, if the bank's at 5 foot from the center, so you got 25 feet of other land to go over before you hit the 30-foot mark.
Right.
Is that what they mean? That's what I mean, but is that what they mean?
Let's see what it
You know,
says.
one of the things that I think helped when they were helped DES when they were doing the Shoreline Protection Act and all those iterations, was they actually came up with diagrams.
With
I'm
a
not
what?
trying to be, but
Diagram.
they had a picture, an illustration
Yeah.
of a shorefront and like 25-foot buffer, they mapped it all out pictorially, and I think that might be what we have to do in some cases.
Yeah.
Well, I think go ahead,
30 feet from top of bank.
30 feet from top of bank.
Interim planning director Laughlin pointed to packet on page 3 and read is proposed language to be added back into the ordinance. She read the addition, 2, within 30 feet from the top of bank on both sides of intermittent and perennial streams.
That sounds good.
These streams are shown on and will correspond with the latest version of the United States Geological Survey map.
That's even better than 30 feet from center period.
That's working the same way as if we do it with wetlands from the boundary of the wetlands.
Okay, so that's what was proposed, that's what was approved.
Yep.
And now the chairman, or the planning director takes it to
City Council.
city council. Okay,
Is there gonna be any grandfathering involved with this?
in what
Well,
sense?
people have property, and, you know, their house is within this range. And
Dick,
then-
are you speaking of houses that in the time since it was left out, between now and then, that have built in those areas?
I'm not sure. I just wonder, you know, if somebody's got a house that falls within this 30-foot thing, what are they gonna do? Are they grandfathered in?
Yes,
Yes, they'd be grandfathered in, because we're not gonna, the planning department's not gonna have people demolishing whole houses because
Right.
they're in a newly added.
But if they wanted to put an addition on, say
Yes,
Then-
that
then-
in the house,
then-
then
then
they
it
would
would
need the
apply.
CUP
Right.
from us.
right. And Evan's right, when I went to put a porch on my house, my previous house, when the house was built, there was no wetland buffer. Then we put in a 50-foot wetland buffer, which meant that my house was on a 50-foot buffer. But fortunately, I didn't have to tear it down. And I got a conditional use permit.
But you could not add further.
No, I could, because
Because it was discussed.
because I had to fulfill requirements of the permit.
So if anybody in the future, if they're in this buffer zone area, they'll just need to come before us for a CUP.
Right.
Same as with wetlands or shoreline.
Or for a recommendation to the CUP that they actually get from planning.
Yep.
Right.
To be more precise.
It gives us more, it gives more oversight. We're not impeding anyone from building or
No.
anything, it just gives us a eye in to make sure everything's done properly.
Right.
Right, and in fact, one of the statistics that I presented when I presented it to the planning board the first time, there had been, between the period of 2000 and 2012, there were 122 CUPs that came before the Conservation Commission, and of those 122, none were denied. So, I don't anticipate that we will deny any. What we typically do is work with the applicant. So. Okay.
It was good.
All right.
They
So,
both-
next is milfoil, under old business. I think we've kind of discussed that. Unless anybody has any questions.
Nope, it's there.
I think the one thing that I did not do yet, that I have to do, is talk to the city manager about, when Rich Tilton was here, we talked about the possibility of forming a not-for-profit as a way to collect funds and then use those funds to pay for future milfoil management in Paugus Bay.
And I think I had mentioned this to you, or maybe not, about instead of, because forming your own 501c3 is can be costly, and
Mhm.
you have other things.
Involved and,
And you have other things you have to maintain to keep that 501c3.
including a board of directors.
I'm just wondering if you couldn't work through an existing 501c3 to kind of be the, I don't know if you would call it the fiscal agent or the supervisory agent, I don't know. I'm just throwing, Rick DeMark would be one to ask, because he's done that for other groups under different guises. I'm saying like a fiscal agent for one, and a what's the word I want to say, incubator?
Right.
So I think Rick would be the one to ask what would be the way to approach that, and who it might be, who an existing 501c3 might be.
I talked to Lisa Eggleston, who's the president of the Winnisquam Watershed Network, which is a 501c3, and I asked her how complicated it was to form, and she said it was not complicated, but I understand your point that, why form another one if we can use somebody else?
Right. When I say, I have to qualify by saying I've only been experienced a couple of different organizations that I belong to. The experience that the Belknap Association of Natural Resources Conservation had was that it took quite a while and was almost a couple $1,000s by the time they were done. Getting the legal advice plus paying what you have to pay to get it all set up, and then there's a $75 a year filing that somebody has to do, and you have to get all the paperwork and financial reporting and all that.
Okay, I'll call Rick. Do you know Rick's phone number?
I can give it to you after.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I think it makes sense to try to do it, use an existing organization. I don't,
If they're willing, I mean.
The
Yeah.
Winnisquam one would be the ideal one, wouldn't it?
right, well, that's another option, and it would, I just think that Winnisquam has only been in existence for a year, and they already have a lot on their plate. So I think, Rick has been around this for a while, and so he might be a better. But
Yeah.
I could talk to Winnisquam Watershed Network and see if they would be willing to do it too.
The other one that sounds like it might be obvious, but maybe it isn't, is the Lake Winnipesaukee Association, but maybe they too have too much on their plate, I don't know.
Okay.
Because I truly think what you're really doing is utilizing their 501c3 and reporting to
Right,
them.
and they
It's
would
not,
just set up a separate account.
right, it wouldn't be, I don't believe a huge imposition, but I can't speak for them, so.
Right, okay. I'll talk to Pat Tarpey and Rick DeMark and see what their thoughts are. Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody want to talk about milfoil anymore? Okay. Okay, we have item lake cleanup. And this is specifically for Paugus Bay. Do we want to try to organize a way to get garbage out of the lake? Doing it maybe with local neighborhood organizations that would fish bottles and cans and other types of debris?
Do we just anecdotally know that there's trash there? We don't have a specific, it's just, okay.
I mean, we know that, for instance, the Winnipesaukee River.
And we have done focused cleanups in the past, like either the upland section or the downstream section. Yeah, I mean, I think it would make sense to pick a strategic location.
But where?
Well, so I don't travel the waterway, so I can't tell you if there's a lot of trash under the bridge and the channel from Paugus Bay to Winnipesaukee. I don't know if there's a lot of stuff there. I don't know, you know, I'm trying to think of key locations that people would know and say, oh, you know, that's highlighting, there's a lot of trash there. I don't, maybe the flow keeps that stuff moving.
You don't see a lot in there, you're not seeing piles of it. I'll tell you where I see piles of it, and here, this one kinda cracks me up, is, some of the docks that I go to,
Yeah,
where the people are at, and Southdown's one of them.
yeah.
And it's all within their structure, you know what I mean? But I find it funny that the people who should so have access to the lake would be so uncaring as to just think. Even as kids, we learn not to put your beer bottle in the damn lake. That was one of the rules. You
One-
know, but in some of these places here, and you know, if you're just asking where I see trash
Right.
when I go around,
Well, not knowing, understanding the currents, as I said, I don't get in the water much, but,
it's deep, and you're not, you're gonna have trouble right under, doing anything right in the channel.
okay. Well, I remember I was having a talk with Chris Barton years ago, and he said at night, you can, when the waves are, you can hear the tinkle, tinkle, tinkle of all the broken glass, and he says, it's not my guys, it's just, it's the way the stuff's kind of flowing around in there.
And where?
Well, this was years ago by Barton's. He was saying that
I gotta remember that.
by Bayside Cemetery.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And he said it's not, you know, he says I don't believe it's our guess. I think it's just over the years stuff is, and it's all, so I guess what I would try to do,
So going on that there, I'm sorry,
no,
but going right off from there is a sandbar.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And, you know, at least an awareness thing around the sandbar, you know? I'm not saying that they dump a lot of bottles in the lake.
no, that's
You know,
just,
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that's a congregation of a lot of people that
yeah. Well,
August.
and that was Chris's point. He says, oh, it's not, it's just, that's kind of where stuff's ended up, is kind of, you know, I guess the one thing I would, from things, from different public meetings I've been to over the years, I wouldn't want to see us focus necessarily in one area where it might be perceived we are just focusing on wealthy landowners and picking up, no, I'm just,
Golf balls
well, I'm just
off
saying.
the end of the dock.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I wouldn't, I find that people, if we're going to choose one area where there may be some affluence, we should also have an area where, you know, we're doing more of a, like, service type thing. I don't know if,
Yeah.
I wouldn't target anybody. I would just say maybe what we do is write an article for the newspaper.
oh, okay,
Because it's boating, it is boating season every
yeah,
weekend here through October.
yeah,
And it would be the kind of thing where we could say, if you find debris near the shore or floating in the water, take it out, including pieces of milfoil.
oh,
You're not gonna put them on their fancy
And then-
boat. Ew.
well, I just wouldn't, what went through my mind is, I don't know, was I encouraging people to go in there and start ripping up milfoil?
No, that didn't, that's not, it's, my friend is owner of a motel, and when he rakes his beach,
Oh, yeah, the property, yeah.
yeah,
How about doing, it would be contained and might be, I'm gonna say, I don't know if it's easy, not necessarily in the water, but around the dam? Isn't there a lot of trash, like where they do the snow storage down by Doris Ray Court there, that,
I don't even,
you know what I'm
I
talking?
don't know.
O's Restaurant, like that.
I don't know if that's, I've never been down and looked in the water there, but, you know, I think that if essentially just made everybody aware.
Okay.
I think designating something like that and just getting the article out there, make them
I don't
recognize.
think we should undertake the project ourselves.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, that's where I thought you were going with
But
it. That's why
I would definitely, I could see value in heightened awareness of proper lake etiquette as you're out using the lake, you know, how to keep all that stuff down.
And, you know, and so I think if we just had an article in the newspaper, that would be enough.
Dean, in the past, have you guys submitted articles to the newspaper?
I've done a lot of it. Why?
How exactly was that, if you have in the past, was that done through Scott? Or was that one of you drafted something up and then sent it in?
We could,
I don't know.
well, the Laconia Conservation Commission could put a letter into the editor.
That's what I was thinking of.
Or we could, we could talk to one of the reporters
Yes,
and say, we would like an article.
Right.
Okay.
maybe invite the reporter here
Yeah.
for one of our conservation meetings.
So
And
what?
then they can get a discussion and come away with some idea on it, and we can have all our pictures and,
So Rick Green's been covering the city council stuff.
He's been in contact with Dean a lot over
Yeah.
about master plan, various projects, things like that, so.
How I have done this, Evan, not in a city capacity, but with my job, is we send it into just under news release
yep,
and to the paper, and then if it's timely, we ask them to print by. There's no guarantee they will. We had a conversation with Ginger Kozlowski when she took over as editor and just introduced ourselves, and so when she sees our name come through, it's something that she may take an interest in because she's talked to us, but
Oh, the Conservation Commission?
no,
The conservation
out for
district.
my job.
Oh, okay, my mistake.
That's why I was saying not with the city. So that's how we've done that separately. You're right, the city may have a whole level of protocols that you need to,
I'd wanna ask Dean before I send it.
Sure.
yeah.
I think that makes sense.
that makes a good idea.
But in terms of how you get the paper interested in what you're trying to give them and see that it's printed is that route.
Okay,
Okay, so if you could talk to Dean, ask him.
yeah, I'll do some digging.
Okay, good.
You know, if you do get the guy to come out for an article and stuff like that, you can always meet by the edge of the beautiful river and at least have a picture opportunity to,
Dean in a milfoil wig.
oh, yes. The milfoil dress.
Nope, the other Dean.
So, yeah, I can see following up on that. That's a good idea.
Paper would be the best way to get it out to people.
Yep, people read it. It's, you know, they pick it up
Posters in
all the time.
marinas too.
Yep.
That's how we've gotten some questions in the department, people asking about projects that they weren't aware of, is they see something that, Rick Green has put in the newspaper about a project on there, and they get interested in it. Usually it's to see how does this affect my property
Yeah.
that's nearby.
How can I say no?
But it is a good communication tool, I've noticed.
Right.
Learned.
And that way we don't target anybody.
Right?
No.
It's informative.
Yep.
Educational.
Building on cleanup. I know in the past there's been cleanups done for Durkee Brook, Jewett Brook,
Blackbrook.
Blackbrook. What precipitated those? Because I've had someone calling the department asking, it's Durkee Brook that runs along the cemetery over by
Mhm.
Laconia Monument.
Mhm.
There's some trees that have fallen down into it, and cemetery caretakers have cut parts of it away, but the person is concerned they're downstream, what happens if those trees fall into the brook?
Leave them there
Yeah,
in
well,
stream
the
wood.
answer you're going to get from Trout Unlimited is,
I told them we have finite resources.
Well, the other thing, the other thing is that, and this is what I have been told, okay, that it's all private land, and that's not really what the city is involved in. I mean, the Union Cemetery is private land, those are private landowners, and that was part of the reason why the Conservation District for Belknap County has been brought in on several projects, is that we can work with private landowners in the capacity that municipalities can't. And I'm not trying to drum up business for ourselves, but I'm just telling you that's one of the, so, when Durkey Brook had kind of a blowout, at the Union Cemetery, they had gotten an emergency permit from DES, the city hadn't been involved, then we had a really strong storm. I was working with them. We were waiting for some plans to come through from a private consultant that we were paying for to work with them. Then we had a really bad blowout storm, and Suzanne Purley, in her capacity as caretaker with her husband, and I'm not faulting her for it, got on the phone with the city going, look, you gotta do something this weekend because we're gonna have a bad storm and I don't wanna see any graves exposed. And so that's when the city went out there, but they generally are not involved because it's private.
I told the person who called,
Yeah,
city, we have our overlay districts, but we don't own any of the wetlands or brooks that run through those districts. Those
Right.
ordinances are in place to preserve them.
yeah.
If the 50-foot buffer or the 75-foot buffer goes out from those, I told him the only time we get involved is if someone wants to develop it or clear part of the vegetation that's on the side. Otherwise, we don't have the resources to go up and down. And
Well, you not only don't have the resources, I don't know that you have the authority. I don't know that, I mean.
I told him this is in reality, this is on the private landowners. It's their property. It's for them to
They could come,
deal with.
right, I mean, so as I said, I'm not saying this to drum up business for the Conservation District, but I'm saying that could be something you could direct them to the Conservation District or to DES. But my recommendation, although without seeing it, is that I wouldn't necessarily feel just because there's wooden stream, it has to come out. It may be a good thing in that location. It would need to be determined by somebody who knows what they're doing.
He seemed convinced that it was going to dam up the stream and then eventually blow out, and everything downstream is going to.
Well, often what,
cascade, but
I have not seen the site, and I'm not gonna make a judgment based on something I haven't seen or spoken with somebody who does this for work, but I know they are deliberately putting wood in streams to prevent just the things he's worried about.
The talk that the workshop you guys put on.
Right.
I remember that.
So that wouldn't necessarily be a stream cleanup you're talking about removing trash. You're talking about something else.
Yeah, I told him
Stream remediation.
Yeah. So feel free, as I said, I, speaking on behalf of the Conservation District, if I can, Chairman,
Yes?
you can tell them to call us and I will help them, the Conservation District,
Sure.
or DES would be,
I think this is what they were looking for, is they want someone to be aware and someone who might be able to do something. So,
well, or monitor it for them. So, yeah, so go ahead and.
I think that the better way of doing it,
Oh, okay.
of those two choices, is to go for the Conservation District, because it's local, you get a faster turnaround than, and the district could then reach out to Trout Unlimited and some other organizations to support what needs to be done, so.
Or speak with the landowner about what options they envision.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any more on lake cleanup, August Bay? Okay,
Can I ask, actually, I do have a question. How did it happen yet, the lake cleanup that's being organized in the Molten Borough area, or there was one advertised?
I don't know.
Okay.
There's a meeting in Molten Borough tonight to talk about water quality. The Lake Winnipesaukee Association is having it, so. Okay, so next item is liaison and subcommittee reports. Are there any?
Kind of have a report to give.
I'm sorry?
I did that water quality training this
Mhm,
morning,
good.
with Pat Tarpey. Very simple stuff. I also met Bob Craycraft. Very helpful man.
Mm.
I have instructions and the water testing sheets downstairs for us to use if we go out to do it. But it's all pretty. I'd say probably the most difficult thing is doing the laboratory sampling when we get back to shore. After that, otherwise gathering the data, doing the transparency tests that they have, temperature. It's all pretty straightforward and simple. So I also spoke to Pat and Bob about what we discussed this morning, Dean, of having them come in. They said they'll work around our schedule.
Good.
Bob said his better days are Monday and Friday. He's occupied Tuesday through Thursday, going to some work things. But he said whatever we can do, just let them know.
Well, the next meeting would be, if we went by the calendar, would be the 4th of July, so we're not gonna,
We're
obviously.
not going to be meeting. Yeah.
We could adjust the meeting date. And rather than do it on a Friday of that week, people may be on vacation, maybe it's better.
It's also, yeah, okay.
So we could do it the following week,
Mhm.
maybe Friday of the following week. That'll give people a long weekend if they wanted to take the Monday off.
Yeah. So the 13th.
The what?
The 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Perfect.
I grew up with those movies. Don't.
I was just, what I had balked a little bit about when talking about, so Friday the 6th, I guess the next day is the Laconia Parade, the 125th anniversary of Laconia is all happening that weekend. So, I don't know what's going on Friday night, that was why I was,
I don't know.
Oh, Friday. Oh, are we talking about the week of the 6th?
you know, the 13th is what we decided on, but when we started to talk about the week, when we started talking about the 6th, I started to say something. It was-
So does the 13th work for?
So far.
I'll contact Pat and Bob and see if that's.
Okay. And so you're talking about doing the Lake monitoring,
Exactly. Yep.
okay? Are we gonna do anything with the tributaries?
Depends on what you want to do. I just need to get the equipment down to DES and calibrated if we want to do anything.
Let's do that. Let's get it down, because we are at least responsible for the Winnipesaukee River.
Yes.
And I think we only have to do one sampling, but it probably makes sense to do more than one.
Yeah, I've got the name of the person who's in charge of tributary sampling at DES, doing the BRAP. So I'll contact her when it's the best time for me to bring that down to them.
Okay, that would be
'Cause
great.
I might have to bring it either after work or on my way to work
Okay,
to them, so.
okay, you can work that out, whichever works better for you.
So I'd have one for the sort of agriculture, if you,
Yeah,
yeah. So, working with Brenda Carey at Cooperative Extension, I had submitted a grant for a group of people from Laconia to go to what they're calling the Sustainability Summer Institute as part of a beacon community. I don't know if you've heard any of this. So, and I'm not completely sure, but they're the Beacon Communities program. They've chosen several cities around the state last year. I guess it was like Nashua and Somersworth, and to go to this institute and come up with projects related to enhance the community. and then the Sustainability Institute will help them along afterwards. And so we got a grant for us to go to Laconia, for Laconia to go to the Summer Institute around local foods and getting it into the school and enhancing the Wellness Academy program and all that. And so we're going to be going, it's Brenda, Cooperative Extension, the Conservation District, Lakes Region Partnership for Public Health, and 2 teachers from the school system. Lakes Region Planning Commission person dropped out, and that's fine. I mean, she felt it probably wasn't within. So we're going to come up with a project around getting access to good, healthy, quality, locally grown produce to the schools, but taking a holistic approach where we do composting to growth, to farmers meeting the kids, and all this other stuff. So anyway, that's part of our my ag committee report, and it's like a 2-year grant, and we may get some additional funds from another source to kind of expand support for that. Also, I attended, and I don't was necessarily for the agriculture. I attended the Lakeshore Redevelopment meeting they had here, and as well as Dick. And I know Mike came in for a few minutes there, and I apologize, I wouldn't let you sit next to me.
No, it's fine, I'm sure we're gonna get feedback.
Right, but I did speak the point that I made. I gave everybody a handout of the farmland soils map for that parcel, and just spoke to the importance of, spoke to the different levels of classified farmland on that site, prime, local, statewide importance. They're all represented there, and read a little soundbite, a little printed bite about that. It's becoming, there's pressures on these land is becoming much greater, to the point where agriculture is now being pushed to marginal lands, and they're just not as productive. So I don't know.
And, yeah, I was there too. That's why both of us missed the last meeting here, the same night and time. I did speak also, first off, I asked for clarification regarding Ahern Park. The way it was presented in the newspaper sounded like that was in the project, and they clarified it, said that is not in the project itself. Maybe an attraction to the project, but it is not included. In other words, they're not gonna start putting houses down in Ahern so far. I spoke about open space being very important, and also the agricultural potential for that. I think I hit some other topics too, but the mayor introduced the beginning of the talking, and he seemed to be very interested in development.
Of course.
Naturally, yeah.
I think it's amazing that we pay people from New York, and were they out of Saratoga Springs, which is not necessarily, there's some hard places up there. And these people come in, and gee whiz, the only idea they have is growing houses in the field. Now, these houses are going to be for the average worker, so they figure $225,000 to $250,000 for the average worker in this community. Please,
Yeah, there were.
please.
I would kill for housing that I could afford.
Right, new housing, not the same old rat-infested, roach-infested thing,
Well,
They've been lived in for 150 years.
They had like 3 plans, I think. All of them had some combination of some kind of housing.
One was that kind of planned community that would have amenities built into it. One was a sports complex, and then the other was.
Yeah, sports complex, that drew quite a few people. Meaning that, the kids have some place to go in the winter to play soccer and other things, and it's also gonna draw in big name sports people and all that sort of thing. It's just, all 3 of these things, I think it was 3,
Was 3.
Well, what's his name, Russ, the guy developed Meredith,
Right. Rusty McClure.
McClure.
But clear, yeah, getting towards the end, he said that he had developed a lead factory, which is a asbestos factory, which developed into what we now see as, like
Mills
Meredith, Mills Falls and all that. And he said it wasn't all that hard and all that, but he also said nothing is going to happen until this place is cleaned up.
Right.
And so at the end of the session, everybody's walking out, and they had to do their own just business meeting. He was coming downstairs, and I nailed him on that one. Didn't quite get an answer complete that I would like, because we talked for quite a while, and he got called back in because it was a 5-minute break for them. But if nothing's going to happen, I tried to get this point across, but I couldn't. If nothing is going to happen until it's cleaned up, we got all these plans, 3 scenarios, that by the time the thing is cleaned up, may not be in effect, because the economy, everything would be different. We don't want housing, or we don't want a sports complex, or whatever they're proposing. This is years down the pipeline, but yet we're paying for this right now, which, like we did, 7 years ago, we
Right.
paid for all this stuff, all these proposals back then, and nothing happened, never got pushed to the second stage of things, actually determining what needed to be cleaned up and how to clean it up and how much it was going to cost and all that. It was just kind of an overlay of things back then. But people came up with all kinds of ideas how to use it. One of them was an armory up there, not an armory, but for the National Guard to use it up there, and there was all kinds of stuff back then. But my thinking here is that we're paying for all this stuff now. It's like the cart before the horse.
I think that your question on cleanup is really, that's the important issue. That's the really important
Yeah.
issue, because
That's what we should be talking about before we discuss all
And
this.
who's gonna pay for that? The developer, the state?
well,
It's not our property, it's not City of Laconia's
Well,
property.
they also, it was mentioned that, this city is the only one that could apply for the brownfield money or whatever it is there. But then he said that, there's other ways around it. I don't know what the other ways would be, but
who said that there were
I'm
other,
pretty sure he's the one that said it,
Rusty?
Rusty, yeah. Don't quote me on it. But there are other ways of doing it with private money perhaps or something, Some big developer comes in and, hey, that's small change to him, that sort of thing.
I made this point when Ed Leahy was the chairperson looking at options, and
Matt Leahy.
Matt
Matt
Leahy,
Leahy.
sorry, thank you. And I told him I did a project exactly, very, very similar to this in New York when I had my business there, and the cost of doing the cleanup was in the tens of millions of dollars. And, today it's only, got a multiplying factor, and then we don't even know the extent of the contamination.
Right, with the
So-
commission, when they did a field trip, a tour in there, they had to have masks on, and I guess they didn't actually go into the buildings because the
Cut it
stink
out.
was so bad. No, this was talked about.
Right,
It was so bad in there.
right.
I think
So,
one of the things that I saw in the paper, which was interesting, and maybe something, I don't know what our capacity is to reach out to people who are running for office, but I saw that who's current Representative Peter Spanos, who's on the Lakeshore Redevelopment Committee,
Nice.
is filed to run again as a state representative and
Yeah.
run for mayor. And I'm just thinking, it would be probably, as individual citizens, in our interest to reach out to him and make him familiar with us and our viewpoints. I don't wanna say that we would represent the city of Laconia, and I don't think, or maybe we do, I don't know, but I'm just saying, reach out to him as someone running for mayor and just share, if he's, I don't know how long this committee's gonna stay formed, but that's just my thought.
I mean, I think Dick's right, it may be if 10 years from now, the price of the house was in the 200s, that would be a realistic price, but today it's not.
They
So-
talked about workforce housing, and what was the other term
They-
they
Oh,
used?
I hate it when they use the buzzwords that aren't rooted in actuality. Sometimes you hear workforce housing, and in some way it brings a connotation of subsidized housing.
Yeah, they said
But-
no on that.
Right, but workforce housing, can you buy a house by yourself? Can you be Evan and move up here and buy a condo, a house on your own, someplace on a nice little street, somewhere you can stay and grow, Or just, it takes two, with those numbers there, it takes two good jobs that don't exist.
Me by myself, I'd have a hard time finding a house or anything like that. I think the lowest one I saw was 177,000 in Concord. At this point, going upwards from that.
Yeah.
I cannot afford that with the job, with
No, and that's a reality, that's every one of us who works here.
yeah.
my girlfriend, who eventually will probably be spouse. She wants to do teaching. She was geared towards teaching like that. We're not gonna have high-paying private jobs, so.
I think, Dick, in that proposal for this the multi-category housing that we were talking about, it was a mix. Some were gonna be very, kind of the lower income, then some moderate income, then some nicer townhouses. It was gonna be like a mix in that. And the affordable, housing, workforce housing, the workforce housing, when I asked the question, is what, 250,000, is that what a starting range? And she said, yes. Well, I'm saying that was their,
Oh, yeah, oh,
That
no,
was
it's
their-
fanciful.
so,
I think the gardens over by Weir's, they're supposed to have started a couple weeks ago, they haven't yet. Said their starting price for houses on their sign is 220 and up.
right.
Yes,
Yeah, and that's,
and if you wanna go to the other side of the Weirs, it's 450 for 1,200 square feet.
so if you think back, Evan, every time somebody brings plans to us, and often one of us will ask that question about, when they're talking about a subdivision, it's like, what is the price range, just because we're curious? That they've always been in the.
Right.
Well,
Okay, so
One last point on this whole thing. You look at the traffic pattern in Laconia now, everything funnels through that narrow main street. If you're gonna go north to Meredith, or unless you take the bypass, and then you take the bypass, and where does that take you? You either have to go Route 11B through the Weirs, or you backtrack down to, by Shaw's there, McIntyre Circle we used to call it, and then get on Route 3 there. If you add all this growth that they're so happy to talk about, all these people, and you got Parade Road and Old North Main Street and Elm Street, right in that area, what is gonna happen to the traffic with all this additional growth in that area?
We are constrained by our water features, yeah,
Yeah,
we are.
and so, open space is the ideal place for this thing.
So, anyway, I think that if
A park.
Lisa and Dick would be willing to follow this and report back to us, that would be very
It
helpful.
was, it was reported pretty well in the newspaper. I
Yeah.
meant to clip it, and I forgot to clip it.
The other thing I guess I'd like us to, I don't wanna say necessarily talk about, but, in the mayor's opening, that he was talking about, they've made it much easier for raw land to be developed through their reiteration of the master plan.
Yeah.
And I don't know, as a conservation commission, I mean, I guess we have not traditionally been obstructionists, and I don't wanna go that way. But I also guess I'm not completely aware of all the raw land they're eyeing.
I think they're looking at,
So-
the, northwestern section of the city.
Well, that's when they were talking about changing the agricultural,
Narrowing the RR2 setbacks from 200 feet to 100,
yeah,
so that there's more access. The reasoning I got for that was because, well, the trees will grow and you won't see in that deep. But some of our vistas are because there aren't trees on the side of the road, because it does look out over San Bernardino.
right. So anyway, I just put that out there. I don't know if that's something that we wanna be proactive about, or what we can do. I'm not trying, as I said, I'm not trying to be an obstructionist, because I really don't see that we have been, and it's not something I'm interested in, but I also don't want to be taken by surprise one day and wake up and go, oh.
Well, I think that the issue is that they need to define the extent of the contamination, figure out who's gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
Before they go any further, because they gotta demolish buildings, they gotta excavate soils, whatever they have to do to get it cleaned up.
Okay.
Can't put buildings in Chernobyl until you clean Chernobyl up.
Oh, they're not even trying.
No, they're capped it with concrete, so. Anyway, so, any other subcommittee reports? Okay, then let's adjourn and go into non-public session.
We have to take a vote on that?
Okay, so, anybody wanna make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, nobody's opposed. Okay, good, thank you.
Do we have to vote to go into?